Asafodu. I'm a business strategy consultant and a data specialist. Welcome to my channel once again. If you recall, in the month of December, I've committed it to listening to stories by various data scientists around the world, especially Ghanaians, to help those who want to start a journey in data science see the practical side of it. I'm pleased to be in my fourth interview, and I have with me today Eugene Foley. He is a former classmate in tech and also from Boche.
Yeah.
So we may link up on Boche days, but let me just first give a brief about Eugene so as my users would understand or know who we are interviewing today. So the name, like I said, is Eugene Foley. And Eugene is a senior data analyst at McKesson Corporation in Irving, Texas. McKinsey is a Fortune 10 company. It's like one of the leading 10 companies in the United States. McKinsey is the leading healthcare company for wholesale medical supplies and equipment, pharmaceutical distribution, and healthcare technology solutions. Eugene works on the advanced analytics team that focusing on building analytics solutions for enterprise cash management, supply chain optimization, and transportation, amongst other initiatives. Prior to McKesson, Eugene worked at Capital One Auto Finance in Plano, Texas, where he built data and analytic tools for call center agent performance management and made data-driven improvements to auto loan loss mitigation processes. Eugene has a bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering from KNUST and Texas A&M University, respectively, specializing in analog integrated circuits design, and started out his career as a design verification engineer at Texas. I think this sums what Eugene has been, but I mean, it's normal. In every interview, you start with tell us about. So welcome, Eugene.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. It's been so many years. I think
I know.
10 years.
Yes, so we graduated in 2010, so
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So Eugene, normally interviews you are first asked, tell us about yourself. So tell us, after all these profiles, tell us about yourself.
So I mean, I think you've covered most of the professional aspect of it. So like you said, I mean, electrical engineer by training, currently working as a data analyst. What else? I think let me go a bit on the personal side. I'm married. I have a almost 3-year-old son who keeps me very on my toes and very busy. I'm from Ghana, you know. Yeah.
All right.
You've given most of the profile, so
yeah, I think I'm not fair to you. I should have left some out.
that's perfectly fine.
All right. So how did you get into data analytics? Because from your profile, you started as an electrical engineer in Ghana, did electrical engineering in Ghana. So how did you get into data science or data analytics?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So based on my profile, yes, I started out as an electrical engineer. During my undergrad, if you recall, we had this Texas Instrument scholarship that we interviewed for. And so, yeah, they selected 3 of us. We came here to Texas. We studied, analog integrated circuit design. So all that means is, those chips that go into your cell phones, your laptops, your, medical devices, things of that sort. So after that program, I mean, I went straight ahead into Texas Instruments. doing design verification, which was building test benches, writing code to make sure that the circuits that were being developed would work whenever they are put in the system. And so somewhere around 2016 is where I started to think beyond what I was doing. And I realized, at that point, I realized that I didn't see myself doing, the electrical engineering stuff, the design verification for forever. Because I realized that even though it was important work, it was very abstract. And personally, I like things that I can relate to the real world, And so I began to really think about what my next move should be. So I had heard a lot about cybersecurity. I heard a lot about, I had friends who were software developers. I had people who were doing things in IT, things like that. So naturally, I was thinking about fields like that. And then my brother-in-law is a data scientist, and he also told me about, hey, just take a look at data science and see what you think. I had heard about data science because of all the hype. And so what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to take some introductory courses. I'm going to learn, I'm going to brush up on my programming skills, brush up on statistics, figure out what this is really about and see if it's interesting. So it's interesting because I took some introductory course, not just in data, but also in IT. I did a little bit of cybersecurity just to get a feel for what these people do on a day-to-day. And so after about 6 months of, just investigating these different things, I fell in love with the data aspect of it, mainly because it was a field that I saw touched every aspect of our lives, whether we, liked it or not. And with also the fact that we were generating with the advent of smartphones and, these, even our fridges are connected to the internet now. And so
everything is smart now.
Exactly. With the Internet of Things coming, there's a lot of data that's being generated, which, I felt like, man, the industry is huge. The world becomes your playground. So once you learn all these tools and these techniques, it becomes more than a job, that you're looking for. It becomes more than a salary that you want to take. Because I know a lot of people were interested in data science because it pays well. But I was looking more for something which I dare say was like a calling, you know. So personally, getting into data science and data analytics was, beyond the hype. It was more of what do I really see myself doing for a long time? What would get me, to learn about different industries that affect our lives on a day to day. And so that's how my journey, started. And I was grateful to work at Capital One, which is it's not just a bank. I mean, it's a tech company that does finance, So and they have a very mature data practice. And so that helped me to, learn some of the tools like the SQL, the Python, and then, Tableau, the visualization software, and then learn about the importance of working with the business and understanding what the business people actually want, and then transitioning into McKesson, it's giving me another view of the world, in healthcare, because I had no idea about healthcare. But then, like I said, once you know these data analytics tools and you are willing to learn, it's you have to take the risk sometimes.
Okay. Oh, so you said a lot. I mean, my takeout is a lot. I mean, one is you always need somebody to lead you.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, it was your brother-in-law.
Yes.
Because definitely moving into new areas is, how would you know if someone does not tell you? It's
Exactly.
always important, which you've talked about. The fact other side you talked about is not also focusing too much on the hype, but looking at the substance of data science. So even in any field, it's important that as viewers, you listen to not just the hype around it, but go to the fundamentals and see whether you want it or not. It's not just about the money, but something that you okay doing for the rest of your life and impacting on lives. Then you ended in talking about some of the things that you've learned as a result of your work, that moving from a finance company or tech finance to finance company into the medical field. So the next question would now be, what is really required for to be a data scientist or somebody who works with data or data analyst? What is the most important lesson you've learned in your work so far?
The most important, I would say, is just having an open mind and having what, some researchers have called a growth mindset.
Okay.
Switch, and I say that because switching from electrical engineering into the data field, once you're starting, there seems to be a lot to learn. Because if you go online and you search for how to get into data science, everybody has their way. And they'll say you have to learn the maths, you have to learn programming, you have to learn stats, you have to learn all these things. I know, yes, I'm from a very technical background, and so even though it seemed overwhelming, it was not intimidating. But then I'm thinking about the person who, I know some data scientists who are sociology majors or psychology. They had zero technical, backgrounds, but they are doing extremely well. I have a teammate who, we have a similar journey in that I think he did an arts, but he has an arts background, but he's one of the best data people I know. But so what the most important thing about the growth mindset is that with enough practice, with the right application of yourself, you can get to know and understand anything. And so it starts first from here. Like, it's going to be challenging, I must tell you. I mean, there were days that because you're learning a new language, you're learning Python, you're learning R, you're learning all these things. And there are days that you feel like, I'm not really making progress. You encounter a problem, you don't even know how to solve it. And so sometimes it feels very discouraging at some point. But once you have the mindset that, this is something that I can understand. I'm not understanding it now, but I can understand it with more information, with more application. Let me ask more questions. And then give yourself time. I know sometimes people, be patient with yourself. Give yourself that time and then apply yourself. So that is the first thing in terms of getting into data science, the mindset. And then the second thing is, don't get too caught up in what course I want to take. Because I think sometimes people, you spin on your wheels, because I've been through that before where I'm like, what course do I take? Everybody's advertising that I can make you a data scientist in 10 weeks. So the most important thing is the fundamentals, right? If you know how to use Excel, you're already many ways there. If you can do
practically, you are there.
Practically, you are there. If you can do graphs, you can do a pivot table, you can do your VLOOKUPs, you can do all those things in Excel, you're pretty much there. One thing that I would say is, for the fundamentals, learn SQL, the structured query language, because no matter what you do in this world of data, you would have to pull data from some database somewhere. And SQL it's a very easy, introduction into data, right? Because the way the language is, it sounds a lot like English. So select this from that table, where, it's very easy to learn. So
straightforward.
and very straightforward. So that would kind of ease you into it. And then once you learn the fundamentals of SQL, pick a language. I mean, I know there are people who are like R, people who are like Python, who are fighting. Pick one and then pick a resource that you are comfortable with. I like reading books. I'm not too good when it comes to like watching videos and things like that. I want a book. I want to open my laptop and then just practice, and then pick a language and just start. Sometimes we spend too much time thinking of, is this going to work or not? It's like who goes to Harvard and the one who goes to another school. It's not the school is important, but then it's about you applying yourself. There are people who failed, even at Harvard.
Yeah.
And there are people who went to a school which maybe we can't even mention the name, but they are doing excellently well. So the equation,
because they've applied themselves.
Exactly. So the most important factor in the equation is you, the individual, and what you want to take out of whatever courses that you are taking. So just to wrap up, to get into data science, it's get the fundamentals right. Get the SQL, the basics right. Descriptive statistics. You don't need to go, so just know your histogram,
average, sum, mean.
your average, sum, the mean, get those fundamentals right and well, and then you can build on it from there. And the last thing that I'll say is that, sometimes people they try and do a hierarchy, like, oh, the data scientist is the end all be all. The data analysts are the common floor members, as we used to say. But I mean, I'm very glad and proud to say, look, I'm a data analyst. I don't want a title as a data scientist. It doesn't matter. The titles don't matter. What matters
just get to the work.
Exactly. The value that you bring to the table, And so just start from the fundamentals. The most important thing you can do is to get started. And then find the places that you can get answers to your questions. And then assess yourself every time that, okay, I've learned this. And once you learn it, try your best to find projects that you can apply it on, because personally, that's how things stick for me. If I learn something and I don't use it, I probably will forget it in a few days, weeks. So you find and there's a lot of good projects, tutorials that you can find. So that's one thing I say, hey, look for a tutorial. And if you need help finding stuff, I mean, I can always share resources later.
I'll ask that probably in the closing remarks, so as you show us.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources that can help. Yeah, with just the basics and the fundamentals. Get yourself into it and then gauge your interest. If it's something you see, man, this is something I can do, push for it. If honestly you ask yourself and your motives are not aligned properly, then maybe it's something else that you should be looking at. So that's just for me.
I think you've said a lot. One, you start with a growth mindset that it all starts in the mind. You need to be ready that I'm willing to take this challenge, and you would grow over time. You will not start by building the best machine learning algorithm in the world. You start from Excel, like you said. If you can do Excel, you are one step in there. Learn all it is that you can learn and have a growth mindset. And you talked about the SQL, that's the SQL language that you can learn to help yourself. But most importantly, you also said that it's about the value you bring on board, not necessarily the title that is given to you, whether data science or data analyst. But from my engagement, what I've really picked up is the fact that you're saying that just start. It doesn't matter where, and get into it. As you start, you would now begin from somewhere and move with a growth mindset from one level to the other. And as you start, you also engage your interest. Maybe you realize that this is the side of data science that I'm interested in. Maybe just analytics. I'm just about visualization. I'm just about the extraction side. Maybe I'm just about the programming side.
Yep.
So Eugene has given us a lot of tidbits for, in the practical sense, how to really start, irrespective of your background. Thank you so much. The next question I would ask would be, what has been your most challenging work so far, like with working with data as a data analyst? What has been your most challenging work so far?
So that's a good question. I'm trying to think. This year in particular, because I mean, healthcare has been.
I took a lot from you.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. The work that really took a lot from you, I mean, to solve.
So, I mean, this year in particular, because I'm working in healthcare, has been quite the challenge because of COVID. And so, you know, I joined McKesson in September last year. And then, you know, everything was just nice, honeymoon period, you're excited. And then all of a sudden in February, 5, 6 months into it, this pandemic starts, and then there's fire drills everywhere. And so all hands on deck. And so you are thrown into so many different analytics requests. And I think the most challenging thing is being new to an industry and then having to learn and then produce results. That was a big deal because number one, you have to understand the data and not just understand it, but understand it from the perspective of the business users and then generate reports that make sense to them.
Yeah.
So I think that even though that was, I would say, the most challenging period from maybe March all the way through to June, where every day was just something new. People were asking for different things, government agencies asking for different things, and then going into the data. And now we're working from home, so it's not like you can just walk to somebody's office and say, hey,
and ask,
can you tell me about this? So now I had to reach out to people. And if you've known me well, I'm quite introverted. I'm not the kind of person. But then I had to change that. I had to now start talking to people a lot. And so have all these meetings, you're talking to people, sharing your analysis. People are telling you, no, this doesn't make sense. You need to go and change this. So that whole it was a very challenging period, but also a period that really matured me in the data analysis practice. Because I'll be glad to say that after all that, it's like I became sort of like a go-to person when it came to like the data, understanding the data. Hey, who knows the data very well? Oh, go and talk to Eugene. He can give you answers. And it also helped me to build up that profile of trust, because trust is very important. If they trust your data, I don't know how to even put it. It's one of the most important things that you can have and build as a data analyst. So, yeah, already the honeymoon period was nice, but then they threw me straight into the fire, starting in March. And it's been quite interesting. But yeah, that was, I would say, the most challenging. It was because of, one, the time crunch. We need it today, or we need it first thing tomorrow, and you have no idea. I didn't even know that
asking you for
existed. And so now you have to start asking and reaching out to people, and it's not like nobody's going to hold your hand. Nobody really is going to hold your hand. And so just learning, to be honest, the way I did it was, you take a step back and just think about, okay, who is the first person I can reach out to, and just start talking to people. hey, can you help me with this? Do you know about this? Have you worked on this before? And then you start to gain more clarity. And then, as you, because you can't work. One thing I learned is that as a data professional, you can't work in a silo.
At all.
At all. And then you also have to learn to build relationships with people and partnerships with people. And so, and then the third thing was, just about credibility, being able to not just throw some analysis out there to get people off your back, but then making sure that you do your due diligence. So that's what I took out of that situation.
Oh, Tommy.
Yeah.
I think you've made mention of some key things that as people who want to get into data science must learn, that you should be a learner. Like
Yes.
you was just saying that you are in a new industry that you knew nothing, close to nothing about in pharmaceutics or even the
pharmaceuticals, finance, supply
pharmaceutical,
chain. Yeah. Transportation. I had zero idea.
It's expected of you to deliver. And you rightly said one of the key things that anybody that wants to get into data science would have to take into consideration is that learning mentality.
Exactly.
You may not know, but find ways of getting to know.
Exactly.
Wow. And you talked about trust also, that as a data scientist, the best thing that you can gain from your users is the trust that your data analysis work and can be used, and the integrity side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's up to all of us, all those watching, to know that it means that as a data scientist, you are like a jack of all trades. You do everything.
You do everything. Yeah.
You have to learn.
You have to be able to pick up, the basics, pick up what's important, and then, work from there. And sometimes, the most important thing just is that sometimes your users don't even know what they want. And so one of the things that I've learned to do is, whenever you have a meeting or whenever you talk to somebody and get an idea for what they are looking for, speed is important. If you can generate something for them within a day or two, show it to them and say, hey, based on what we talked about, this is what I have. Sometimes we get so bogged down by perfection. We want to do the perfect thing. We want to make sure this thing is right. It's a mindset that I've had to really train myself out of, because if you know our educational system, not just in Ghana, but even here, it's about getting the correct
everywhere.
Answer.
It's the best.
It's about getting the correct answer. You have to get the correct answer. But in data, it's not necessarily about the correct answer, especially when you are starting. When you're starting out, you want to make sure that you have the right question. Are they really asking the right question? Are we addressing the right problem? And so for me, I deal with ambiguity like, what do I have that I can present in the shortest possible time? Because once you present it, guess what? The wheels will start to turn. People will start saying, oh, yeah. No, that's not what we want. This is what we actually need. And then you would start to, okay, now you are giving me the right question to answer. Because sometimes people come and say, oh, yeah, I just need this. But that's not really what they need. So, yeah.
So I think you've made mention of one key thing here. You need to be fast, which is speed is also another important attribute of a good analyst or data scientist, because the users will not be waiting for you forever.
Exactly.
Your ability to quick. Yeah. You were saying something.
No, I was just saying that, especially for an analyst, for a data scientist, data science is more like the researcher kind of person. That's the way I think about it. So they probably need more time to make sure that their models are tuned properly, all the statistics work. An analyst doesn't really care too much about stats. It may sound strange, but then it's about speed and it's about accuracy. Just get something that is accurate. It may not be the
That
nicest.
works.
Yeah, the data scientist, the statistician guy will care about is the statistics right?
The
Is
best
the math
model.
right? Yeah, the model right. We just are like, hey, we care about the data integrity. We care about the business processes, the business rules. Are we applying those rules properly? You know, things
The understanding right.
exactly.
Is
Yeah,
it being applied well?
exactly. Is it being applied well?
Is this the right picture that we have as a
Exactly.
business?
As a business, yes.
So you make a case for data analysts and data scientists.
Yes.
But I think, yeah, it's where data analysts, but I personally, I believe that everybody that works with data, in general terms, a data scientist,
Mm-hmm.
we have the, once is the science of data that makes you.
Exactly.
But yeah, well, like you're saying, the key part here is that as an analyst, people may come to you with ambiguous problems. They don't even know the problem. And it's your ability to get the problem first. And that's why speed is important. So as you bring something out and they'll now begin to wrap their mind around what their real problems may be.
Exactly. Exactly. So you can look at this like searching for gold. So yeah, you need to
You
find
start somewhere.
yeah.
All right. I like a quote you made. You said it's not about the best answer, but it's about asking the right questions.
Yes.
And one thing is a takeout that we all have to look at, that based on our educational systems, we might have been trained to think in a certain way that there's a perfect answer for every scenario.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case for data science. The
Exactly.
same problem can be solved in so many ways by different people.
Exactly.
They're the same answer. All right.
Exactly.
So, what has been your most fascinating data science project you've worked so far?
That's
Data science or working with data. What is the most fascinating project you've worked on?
I mean, that's a good question because I mean, I've worked on quite a number of very interesting things, but I would say one of the first projects that I worked on, it had to do with, when I was at Capital One, we were, so there were already some dashboards that existed that the managers were using to track, performance. And so, I mean, I was tasked with simplifying like the metrics and, reporting out those metrics every day so that they could look at just maybe 3 or 4 rather than 50
Wow.
metrics. So
Mhm.
that was really maybe one of the first big data projects that I worked on. And so that we had all these meetings discussing what metrics really mattered. Are we measuring the right stuff? Because if you know what gets measured is what gets done. People will always manage around whatever you're measuring. So we didn't want, people to manage around the wrong thing. And so it looks like, okay, we are green everywhere, but then the business really is not doing well because we're measuring the wrong stuff. And so we went through the exercise and we figured out the 3 or 4 things that we needed to measure. And then my task was to put together, something that worked for everybody, especially with the operations people, because they were going to use it on a day-to-day. And that's where I found that, sometimes analysts we can get or data professionals can get into the mindset of, oh, let me go use the latest and greatest technology. Exactly. And I saw how that had failed because, some of the tools that were out there were good, they were nice, they were fancy, but then it wasn't being used. And so, I mean, I talked to the operations guys, just to figure out what exactly would you guys like. And so I got a list of, some of their pain points with existing solutions. And then, so the first dashboard that I did was an Excel dashboard. Very simple,
Basic.
straight to the point. And one thing that once I started sending out that information, I realized that the engagement was really, really, really high. Like they were using it, they were asking questions, they were using it in their daily huddles, their daily meetings. Like, so it was something that was very useful to them. Now, the reason why I mentioned that project is because it may not have been something
Fancy.
right, but the business gained a lot of value from it. And that's how I measure, progress. And so what I started to do was more like continuous improvements to the project because one other thing I noticed is that many people will build a tool, give it to the customer, and then hands off, right? But then I wanted to be like, okay, we are partners. So people will come with feature requests. Oh, can you tweak this? Can you make this happen? And then based on, the based on the feedback that you get, it's like, well, I'm done with this. So use it the way it is. But then that was one
Wow.
thing that I started to do, which was, accommodate those kind of requests. Not all of them, but then you prioritize them and then you're able to work with the people even after you've delivered to continue to make improvements. Because as people use your product, they begin to see areas that, oh, I wish we could change this. I wish we could have this. I wish we could do that. And so you gather all that and then, have those discussions with them, see what's feasible, and then you do it. And so as we continue to do this, I realized that, okay, generating this report every week manually is taking time. So I started to think about automation and how do you automate these reports, And so the company had just started using Google as like a company. And so there was this tool called Data Studio. I don't know if you.
Okay, you use Google
So I was
Studio.
like, oh, this is a very simple, clean interface. It already integrates with all the Google stuff we are using. And so it will make sense just to transition this report there. I can have it update,
At any real time.
exactly. So I spent a day or two. I went to learn how to use Google Data Studio, and then I started to build the the same capabilities in there. So it took me maybe another week or two. Then I sent it out to them. I said, oh, you know what? I've been able to transition this into Data Studio. This is the way it works. This is the way it integrates with all our Google stuff. Can you just use it and let me know what you think? And that caught on really, really well because the existing solutions that were being used were all these, very fancy Tableau dashboards.
Yeah.
But Data Studio made it easy. It integrated with what everyone was
You
using,
wanted
like
to
Gmail and
achieve.
everything. And I could, once I sent, I programmed it to send, the reports every so often. They get it, they click on it. It's right within what they don't have to go to a new software or a new site to go look at it. And so what I found out was that was very impactful in terms of just thinking after you've done something. One of the most important things is think about how can I make these improvements. So you're being more proactive than being reactive, reacting to, oh, now they need this, so I'm going to do it, rather than starting to think of how can I make this better. Be asking them questions. Is the user experience good enough for you? Because that's that technical people sometimes don't really think about. What's the user experience?
That's the challenge.
It's a big challenge, and it takes a lot of asking questions, putting yourself in a vulnerable position where people can tell you that, oh, your work is not good enough. And
it's painful.
It's painful, yes. And as a data professional, you need to get over that thing of it's not personal. Don't take criticism, don't take feedback personal. Get to the place where you are assured in, okay, this is who I am. This is the work I do. It's going to go through several iterations before it becomes perfect. Getting through that is important. So don't take the feedback. The feedback is gold because that, at the end of the day, when the product is working the way it's supposed to work, people will forget about how it
What
was
the
in the past.
iterations?
Exactly. You know, think about all the software that we use. Maybe we had problems with it. When they fixed it, we forget quickly
The bugs,
how
everything.
bad
Yeah.
it was, you know. And so I'd rather get all the feedback, go through all those iterations, and then at the end of the day, have a good functioning product. My customer is happy, I'm happy. Also, open up lines of support because things can go wrong, you know. And then, most importantly, just build partnerships. So, yeah, to me, that was a fascinating project that I worked on, not because of the tools or anything, but then just the whole process of
Adding value.
continuous improvements, you know, and then just opening up channels of partnership. So once a project goes that way, I find that fascinating.
I'm happy with one thing that it's running through this discussion with you with regards to the practicality of the work we do as data people or data professionals, that most often than not, and even I think it runs through to the entire technology space, that technical people get too much enthused about what they are doing in terms of how sophisticated their technology is, and forgets the core, which is the end user.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, there's a problem that you're trying to solve. And if a simple tool can solve it, like Excel, like you're saying, there is no point in showing me how good you are in R
Exactly.
just for it to be so complicated.
Yeah.
And I like the angle you bring into. I'm sure a lot of, if data professionals are listening to it, something that they pick, especially the soft side of the work we do as data professionals, knowing how to build partnerships. That it is not personal. We are a team, and we seek to, the end result is the business value. What is the bottom line? We want to increase our profit, our revenue. So that's the most important thing than your work as a data person. And you've actually reiterated this. So if you're listening and you're a data professional, you are going into data profession, note some of the basics that Eugene is talking about, that don't be too high end on, I know how to use Python, I know how to use R, the tools per se, but go to the fundamental. What is the problem that the business is seeking to solve? And what value can you do by the solution you are providing? Before you go into what you know. So and he talked about not being too personal with the thing. So if a client says this solution, even though you might have spent 5 days to solve it, he's saying it's not solving their problem. It's so sophisticated. It's not solving their problem. You just need to take it as a feedback, because at the end of the day, it's not how good you are, but it's how best your solution can help the company.
Yes.
I have a personal experience with that. I built a dashboard and I showed it to a boss and he said, it's not useful. I was like, wow. I just had to delete it. It was painful. I had done a matrix and I felt, wow. I'd done a 5x5 matrix to show the changes in the environment and goods. I'm like, said, I can't even understand. And I'm like, wow. I was so hurt, but I took it as, even if he can't understand, then who else?
Exactly.
It can be painful. Thank you for that feedback. All right. So let's go into probably some technical stuff, like what tools do you use? You talked about even Google Studio in some breadth. So what tools have you been using?
So the tech stack that I use is, so I do a lot of work in SQL using structured query language, and I use the Snowflake data warehousing solution. So Snowflake is mainly like, it provides data warehousing where the data is stored, and it provides like a user interface where you can, query the data. And you can also do like a lot of data engineering stuff in there, like data acquisition, data ingestion, things like that. So I use Snowflake heavily. I do some work in Python as well. And so your regular like Jupyter notebooks, things of that nature. And then I use Spark.
Okay.
On the Databricks, Azure Databricks platform. So that is mainly so what Spark normally does is it helps with processing larger volumes of data.
Yeah.
And so they have, all the different threads and things that multi-processing, things that you can do to speed up processing of, big data. So yeah, mostly, I mean, on a day-to-day, it's SQL, Python, some Spark, and then for data visualization, I use Tableau quite a lot. I've done some Power BI, but then I use like Tableau heavily. And then depending on the audience, so if it's the finance people, then Excel works very well for some of the analysis that we do. So yeah, Excel, SQL, Tableau, Spark, Python.
Spark.
Yeah.
And Snowflake.
And Snowflake, yeah.
Interestingly, one thing I've understood is that if you ask about 100 data professionals the tools they use, you're likely to only get about a join of only two. Most of them would have different, depending on the solutions that they want to achieve.
Yes.
And you learn on the job, depending on the company that you are. Because like you're saying, you may be using Tableau because in the company you are in, Tableau is what they use or they are familiar with.
Yeah.
Another person in a different company may be using another tool.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's the next question is, how can one start a journey in data science? I mean, for my viewers' sake, some people normally ask, hey Ben, how do I start? Or where do I start? I think you've said some earlier, but if in summary you can take us through. Like, I'm a newbie. I want to start in data science. What do I do?
So there are two ways that I look at it. If you are a newbie and you are already, let's say, working in a company, for example, and they have a data function or people who work with data, start talking to those people. Get curious. I know sometimes, I mean, I'm introverted, so like I said earlier, I don't like to put myself out there. I don't want to talk. Sometimes I don't want to talk to people. Maybe that's why I did engineering and was in a technical program so that I can just put my head behind a computer.
You and the machines.
And forget about the whole world. But remember that no man island, right? And so even them asking that question, how do I get started? That's important. But if you are already working in an environment where there are people that are working with data, talk to them and find out what tools they are using, and then start to learn and start from the basics. Usually, the reason why I encourage people to start from the very basics is, one, it's easier to learn. And then two, it gives you that encouragement, especially when you learn something and then you're able to apply it to a problem. It gives you a certain sense of, oh, I was able to learn how to use pivot table in Excel, and I've been able to implement a pivot table that makes sense. That kind of encouragement, if you get those small wins, it encourages you to keep pushing. Because the alternative is you go and pick a language like Python and you start and it's overwhelming and then you give up.
Yeah.
So to start off, what I'll say is that start with what is most familiar to you. But let's say you are in academia or you're in school, you're, thinking about data science, and then you want to break into the industry after school or something. what I would suggest is, I mean, also go back and learn the fundamentals. I mean, brush up on your math, your statistics, brush up. I mean, it's important to know how to program. So start with SQL. If you have some good programming knowledge, you can do some Python or R in addition to it. Learn, what I would say is learn the basics, like, your data structures, your how to build functions. If you can do it, you can do some object-oriented programming, building classes and things like that. And then once you have it, it's kind of like a carpenter, right? You have a toolbox. So depending on what you need to build, depending on what you need to build, you know what tools that you have to use, right? So for someone trying to break in, yes, I mean, learn those tools. And then I think what will serve you very well is talking to data people, figuring out what they do, and then finding a simple project that you can, something very big, you can start applying your skills to. So, I mean, I can give you my personal journey on how I got into it. Maybe that can give some pointers, but everyone's journey also may be different. But what I started to do was, my brother-in-law, like I told you, he got me into data science. He pointed out a course that I could take. So I took the course to learn, programming.
What course was that?
It was on this website called Udacity, but it's a paid service, yeah. So I paid for it. I mean, I started learning how to program. And so I picked up Python from that Udacity course. There are some other free courses on Udemy and maybe
EDX.
And EDX and the rest. Just pick one, or there are some really good books like Learning Python the Hard Way. That's the title. I, I don't know why they call
Learning Python the Hard Way.
Yes.
All right. So it's a book you can check out if you're listening.
Online. Yeah. I think they should have I don't know if they still have the free version online, but there's a book online, Learning Python the Hard Way. It takes you through what I liked about it is very repetitive. And so you do a lot of examples. And so what you learn the core of the language properly. So once I got done with the Udacity course, the Udacity course had some projects attached to it. And they have mentors that give you feedback. And so I worked on those projects, and then I got the feedback. I had to go back and redo some of the projects. And then because I was working at Capital One, I mean, I started to look for projects that I could work on. So I went out there and told my boss, hey, what reports do you have that you need, to put some magic?
Somebody to crack for you.
And so he came up with a very simple Excel thing. He said, hey, just if you can do this for me, then maybe that will open some doors for you to do other bigger things. And so because I was learning Python, I wrote a simple script that took data from one source and joined it to another source and then summarized it and then presented a summary on a daily basis. So even though that was simple, but then it provided a lot of value. And that's how, any data related project that they needed, they will come and then they'll ask, oh, Eugene, can you do this? Can you build this? Can you build that? Can you build this too? So for me, whenever I hit a roadblock, then I go and read documentation. So the documentation is your friend. You see, a lot of times, even till today, I mean, in my professional work, I use Google a lot to figure things out. So because that's one thing. People trying to break in think that I have to know everything. I have to master everything. We did a lot of chewing when we're when we're
in school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is get the fundamentals, and then for the things that you need to build. To be honest with you, there's a lot of stuff which I've had to build, which at the beginning I have no idea. But then because I know the fundamentals, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And so you go and then you Google, how do you build this? You find a tutorial, you walk through it, it gives you an idea, then you apply what you learned onto the problem that you're solving. And so for those who are trying to break in, I know I've given a very long-winded answer, but then just first learn the fundamentals, understand the program, understand SQL, understand how it works, understand how to write basic queries, understand how to join two different tables, understand relational databases, right? How data is stored, understand structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data, understand, learn the vocabulary, how to communicate as a data professional, and then talk to people. Honestly, talk to people, ask questions, say, hey, what kind of problems are you trying to solve? And then give yourself that challenge. I mean, the worst the worst thing is that, I mean, even if the project doesn't go anywhere, you would have learned something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You learn one or two.
Yeah, you learn a lot, even if the project, and then challenge yourself. Challenge yourself and say,
I like
yeah,
how you started with the, so you started by saying that wherever you are, talk to the data science or the people who are working with data, especially if you're employed.
yes,
So one key thing you are making clear here is that you need people.
you need people,
As
yes,
a data, if you want to get into that journey of data science, you need people. You need somebody to guide you.
yeah,
If you have people already in data science in your company, take advantage of that.
yeah,
If you are in academia, take advantage of probably your lecturers or people that are already in data science. If
exactly,
you don't have work, find mentors. In your case, it was your brother-in-law.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
people can
people are
reach out.
watching now, and
Yeah, you can reach out to
I'm
me.
listening.
I said they can reach out to me on LinkedIn,
Okay.
wherever. I mean, you can share that information and they can reach out to
It's
me.
one of the reasons why I do this. So as
Yeah.
people, because I did a video on the best way to be a data scientist is to have a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I've benefited from that, so I know how useful that is. My boss has been my mentor in most of the projects
Mm-hmm.
that I have done. And like you're saying, so start by having a mentor, somebody you talk to,
Yeah,
and start with the fundamentals, start from one point and grow. Get
exactly.
familiar with one particular course, one particular program, one particular solution. It will build your confidence, like
Mm-hmm.
Eugene is saying, so as you can take on bigger projects.
Exactly.
And don't think that you have to know it all.
Yes.
The whole point is if you have the fundamentals, it means that you have confidence that irrespective of the work, you will use your fundamentals to start. And then Google is your best friend
Exactly.
to solve
Google, and then the documentation for software. I'm
the
always
various software.
Tableau's website. I'm always on because I know you see. The most important thing is to know the problem you are solving. Once you know what you want to do, then you can figure out how the tool will help you to accomplish it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of data people would find this interview very useful. If you're in the industry, you understand a lot of what Eugene is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are too much on the tool. I know how to use this tool. I know how to do this. But like he's saying, the key part is for you to be able to understand what the problem is and
Mm-hmm.
know the fundamentals that this tool can solve it. You may not know what exactly you use to solve it,
Yeah.
but you can then go out there and ask the tool that, how do I solve this? If it's, let's say, a joint problem. If
Yes.
it is what kind of problem is it?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you not even know what question to ask.
Exactly.
So, okay. I'm learning a lot from what you say. I can relate a lot to it because sometimes I remember some work we did for a company in the UK. By the time we're done, we had learned almost like 6 different things which we did not even use in solving the problem itself.
Exactly.
And it's an iteration every data science person should be ready to go through.
Exactly.
So what are the opportunities in data science now, especially, let's say you are in the US, so it's easier to talk about the US market.
Mm-hmm.
What are the opportunities and the future also?
Yeah. So, contrary to what many people would think that, in the United States, it's advanced data stuff everywhere. There are only a few companies who are doing very cutting edge stuff, like the Googles and the Amazons, the Netflixes, of this world. They are the one, and Facebook.
Interestingly, I have a friend at Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a data scientist there. My interest, he does descriptive.
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity. So you see, the thing is, many people want to get into the advanced, like the modeling and building these random forest or SVM and Facebook.
Support vector machines.
Exactly. I'm building all these kind of models, but the opportunities are there for number one, data engineers, those who do the data acquisition, because remember, for your model is garbage in, garbage out. Right. If the data, the integrity of the data coming in is not good enough, your models run on that data. And so then you're not going to get the kind of outputs that you want. And so I think I mentioned earlier that I've had the opportunity to work on some data engineering, projects, which, you're calling APIs, you're getting data into some cloud storage, and then you are processing and transforming that data and applying business rules and transform the data into a way which can be consumed by, data scientists to do their modeling. And so there's a lot of opportunity with just, there's data engineering, learning, and that involves a different kind of skill set than what a data analyst would need, than also what a data scientist would need. And even in data science, there are these machine learning engineers. There are different flavors. And so I would say that, a lot of companies here have become very aware of how data can help them to improve their bottom line. And so you'll find that a lot of people are hiring. There's a lot of opportunities. Even with so one of the things that I get is that many people think that the field is very saturated, but one thing I found out is that there's also an abundance of opportunity, because being in the industry, you find out that there's so much more that we can do that we've not even scratched the surface. And what we're looking for is for data professionals who can stand out from the crowd. Because what is your value proposition? What are you bringing that's different from the other person? Because everybody would have a shiny resume, or I know how to use all these tools. But then when we get to the crux of it, are you a good problem solver? Are you a person who can interact with people? Can you manage your time properly? So what they call soft skills are becoming the things that would differentiate you from the other candidate.
Other person.
And another thing which, a lot of data people go through is that sometimes there's this feeling of maybe I'm not good enough, or they're applying for a role and they're like, oh, there are thousands of people applying. How would I be the best? But, the way I think about it is, even if you don't get a job or you interview, you learn. Not getting a job is feedback from the market. It may tell you that, oh, maybe my skills are not where they need to be.
Where they need to be. Yeah.
Or maybe I need to focus on this other aspect of my development. And so every setback in the interviewing process, because I've been to interviews, there were some I didn't get, there were some which I got. And each of those stages, I learned something, based on the kind of questions that they were asking. I learned what really matters to the industry people.
Wow.
So, I mean, you're talking about opportunities. The opportunities are there. There's myriads of opportunities. But then as a data professional, it's not just about you getting, the first step is getting your foot in. And once you get into a place, so it may not be a data scientist role. It may be, they may call it something else. It may be
like any name.
Any name.
Call you any name.
And it may seem not glamorous, but then, take the glamour away, take the shine away. Look at, are they doing something that would help you to further your, your development and your growth? It may not pay as much as you are thinking. A data scientist has to earn six figures. This may pay less than that, but are you willing to, get in there, learn, and then once you have that, I mean, the trajectory is exponential. So the opportunities are there. And another thing too is, as a data professional, maybe for those who are a bit more mature in their career, you have to learn how to assess if an opportunity is really the right opportunity for you to take. Because I think we discussed it earlier that there are companies who are just hiring data people because it's hype.
The new thing, yeah.
It's the new thing. So you just need some data people just to say we have data people.
Yeah.
But then you need to
an AI team.
Exactly. You need to be able to ask the right questions. What kind of problems are you solving? What level of data maturity is your company at? Do they even have the data that they need? Or do we have to work on acquiring that data? So maybe they don't need a data scientist. They need someone who has a data engineering skill set to help them acquire the data, stand up, a very solid data infrastructure, put all the data governance rules in check, make sure
rules in place.
Exactly. Make sure that all those things are properly stood up before you start hiring for a data scientist who's
the models, yeah.
And even before that, you may need an analyst who can quickly find, hey, these are the
where the
we need to exactly do some exploration, and maybe it's all the descriptive stuff that you need. You need to find the status quo. And once you figure that out, then your data scientist can say, okay, this is the status quo. Now let's run some models to see what the future can look like. So opportunities are there. I mean, let no one deceive you. There's opportunities. It's about getting, and the most important thing is, once you are ready, someone will ask, how will you know you're ready? My thing is, take the risks, apply for the jobs, talk to people, go for the interview. You might think, oh man, this interview, I might really go. If you go, they ask you questions you can't answer. That's feedback. Don't take it personal. Because remember, the company is hiring you to provide value. They're not hiring you. It's not a charity. They're paying you money. And so it's an investment that they expect a return on. And so when you go, if you encounter failure like that, use that as the fuel and say, okay, I went there, they asked me about, what's the name?
ABCD.
You know what p-value was. Okay, I'm going to research. No, seriously, I've had interviews where people have asked about some statistical concept, and I'm like, okay, I really am not too solid on that. Like, well, this is our bread and butter, so we are sorry. At the end of the day, it's feedback. You go back and you learn it. And then, other opportunities will come. And by the time that you are getting your first offer or whatever, you find out that, oh, all these things that happened served me
for a reason.
Exactly. They served me well. So what I would say for anyone is the opportunities are there in the US. I mean, even all over the world. You'd be amazed. I mean, I'm really impressed with what's even happening in Ghana. Like, I keep tabs on a lot of things that are happening, and I'm like, there's a lot of opportunity, because we are
I always tell people that once there is data, there's an opportunity for a data person, and the company may not even know.
Exactly.
But Your job is to say that I work with data. So whatever data you have, throw it at me. I'm willing to make some value.
And you raise a very good point. You see, for those who are currently even employed, even if they don't have a data function, this is your opportunity to create one. Because there are reports that are going out. There are things that are happening. So all the stuff that you are learning, why don't you take some of those things, mock up a dashboard, present it to a few people, get their feedback, make some changes, present it to a wider audience, and tell them that, you know what, guys, I can do this on a larger scale if you give me the resources and the time. But these are things that you see, sometimes you have to grab it, the opportunity with yourself. You don't have to.
It will not be just given to you like that.
Exactly. So look around you, look around you, because the opportunities are there. Look around you and see what are the pain points. Maybe there's a report that your manager would love to have every day, but it comes out once a month. It's something that as a data professional,
opportunity right there.
It's right there. You can say, okay, you know what? Let me figure out what's the data source. Can I put it in a format where it updates every day? And then you go and research and find out, and you do it. Once you gain those kind of wins, people will now start coming to you. And then based on that, you can make a case and say, you know what? This is what we need to stand up a proper data department. And if your company is, willing to do all that, you never know. You never know where that can lead you to.
I agree with you perfectly that there is a lot of opportunity that we are missing, especially in data, that people are just looking for the high-end stuff.
Exactly.
Every company seeks to improve its bottom line. So if you can be in a company, you see some data that is being churned out in a certain way, and you think that if it's changed in another way and told in a different way, the insights will be different. Exactly. And would require a result. For instance, you may be in a selling company. Every time people are going out there to sell, there are leads, but you are not getting any insight out of that. You can run analytics on that. You may be a salesperson in there, run analytics and decide maybe what are the factors that are influencing the leads into turning, or which kind of people are making the most sales.
Yes.
Then you will find a trend, a pattern, and once the company sees value for what you're doing, then it will grow to a point that they might need to say that. I had an interview with the EcoBank head of business intelligence. She said when she went there was only an analytic role, but now she's developed it that now the company has a whole-fledged unit just for business intelligence, which supports 34 countries.
Wow.
So I agree perfectly with what you were saying. That maybe the manager's exposure is so small that he doesn't know what data can do. But once you start working with it and showing it, you'll be surprised. So opportunities abound, listeners and viewers. In Ghana here, that I had friends in software companies in 2016. I told them, why don't you give insights to your clients? In the sense that, for instance, after everybody's selling a sales tool, you can give insight what sells most, what has the highest profit margins, what things are bought maybe in the afternoon, in the evenings, on weekdays, weekends, just some descriptives, and you'll be surprised that the business owner now sees the value and says, okay, now do this.
You can charge for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Give them
so it's all about,
if they want more, you charge them. Yeah.
So the bottom I'm getting from you is about the value side, that people should see how they can improve the value of the business owners or the manager, and then the opportunity will be created in data, not just because it's the fancy thing. The person has to hire a data scientist by all means.
And then one other thing that I also notice is that, there are people who may be listening who maybe are not working, right? Or they're in school or something. Look for something that interests you. If you watch football a lot, you can do some analytics on football. I mean, look at who. If you go on Twitter, there's this guy who's called Statman Dave. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I follow Manchester United, so
Well,
he always during a match you write, okay, this player had 100% of their passes complete, three successful dribble, this and that. You see the engagement on this guy's posts. And so I look at it, I'm like, all this data is there. If you go on the Premier League's website, they have all the data. That can be a project. You can scrape it and then just do some descriptives, like you said. Look at all these different stats, and then you can build examples that, hey, this guy, this is what he's good at, and you'll be amazed. And you can even
just
transfer
put it on.
put it on your
Yeah,
Facebook.
put it on social media, and you'll be surprised what people would be
What people will think.
following you.
Exactly. And if you polish it well, and just start from basics, So look at
It's a very good advice.
Yeah, look for your interest. I mean, some of us watch football, but there's money for you there. Some of us do listen to music a lot.
Yeah.
Look at the radio stations. There's a lot of stuff that as an individual.
Data out there.
Yeah, you can just take it, summarize it. People want it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Wow. That's one thing that personally I've not even looked at, and it's something that I think viewers you can look at.
Mm-hmm.
That start with something that you already been doing. There is already information. Information is processed data. So
Exactly.
you may be listening to music, you may be a football fan. I did one on the Premier
Fantasy League. I mean,
yes.
Do you own
anything that
players
you can have data on? You can play with it, and then it becomes your new source of why. Like, I think it is a very good advice that you've given, and there's a ton of data sets online. You'll be surprised that are begging to be analyzed.
Yes.
All right. So the last but one question is what if I want to be a data science professional or data analyst, what skill must I possess? And where do I go to in terms of courses? I think you mentioned with the learning writing the hard way, but I mean, in summary, where do the people go? What kind of skills? You've mentioned that you should be a learner, have a growth mindset and all.
Mm-hmm.
So in summary, the skill set that is required, and where do they go to in terms of courses?
So
even books.
For SQL, that's the structured query language. There was this free course that I used on, it's called MODE, MODE, Mode Analytics. Yes. Mode Analytics. That will give you, the basics that you need for SQL. So if you run through it's a free course. So you can run through their free course on SQL, and then they also have a course on Python. Okay. And so if you go through those two, that should give you the basics that you need for, for at least the SQL and then the Python side. Then for statistics, I took a course on EDX. It's from University of Texas in Austin. It's called Foundations of Data Analysis. So there's Foundations of Data Analysis 1 and 2. And so that takes you through
Foundation of Data Analysis 1 and 2.
Yes, on EDX. It's by University of Texas in Austin. So what that course did for me was it took me through the basics of, descriptive analytics. And then the part 2 went into inferential, like, hypothesis testing and all the other, central limit theory, all those other statistics stuff. And the t-tests, p-value, all those things. So that course will give you the foundation that you need for statistics. And then, so I've talked about SQL, Python, some statistics. And then if you want to learn a good data visualization, tool, I think Power BI is very accessible, especially for those who use Excel.
Yeah.
And so for Power BI, I think Microsoft Learn should have some courses.
Yeah, some courses on Microsoft Learn.
Yeah, on
Free courses.
free courses that would, give you a good grounding in how to create data visualizations. I mean, for those who like books, let me see. I have some books here. Let me see if I can. Oh, just a second. Yeah, so this book has been really helpful. It's called Storytelling with Data.
I'm out to get it myself.
Yeah, it's a very, very good book on data visualization and also communication. Because as a data professional, your number one skill has to be communication.
Wow.
Because you are communicating with, with data. Another book that I have here, which is really helpful, is called Effective Data Storytelling by Brent Dykes. So another really, really good book. I will send you the
list
list
as
of
I put it in the
so you can put in the chat. So
description.
yeah. So these are just two. I have quite a number of books, but then because I like to read books.
So you do it what works best for you, whether books
Exactly.
or videos.
Yeah, so there are some other courses that you can, I'm trying to think. So that covers visualization. Then, I mean, there are also some free Tableau courses, I think, on LinkedIn Learning or Linda. Or you can Google it. So what I found out is that for the fundamentals, I mean, it's about what you put into it. So when you find a course on Tableau, just run through it because it's going to cover pretty much the same things, as any other course. And so another option for training is Kaggle. Now, Kaggle has Kaggle Learn, and so some really good courses on Python, on SQL, on machine learning. So that will get you on a path into machine learning. And so you learn all the basics that you need, the math that you need, the Python that you need, the SQL. So Kaggle Learn is also another very, very good resource that I think it's also free that you can take advantage of.
I think they are paid ones. I remember recently we were doing scholarship for people of Africa and Asian descent.
Mm-hmm.
But they are free ones on Kaggle.
Yes, there are free ones on Kaggle that you can take advantage of. So, I mean, not to overload people too much, but if you go and you just take these courses one at a time, it will give you at least the very basics of what you need to know. And then you can assess from there, if you want to take the next steps. And the next steps after that would be find a problem that you want to solve, find a data set, and just start getting, because that's the real learning. That's the real learning. Find a data set, find a question, and then seek to answer that question through your data analysis. You will stumble many times, but then the most important thing is the learning you get out of it, So, yeah, I mean, in terms of the tools and the resources, that's where I'll stop. There are so many others, but I think
it's been very, very interesting. I mean, I've learned a lot because you've gone into the first principles in most of the cases. That's not about the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's more not about the technical jargons or the names that we give it. It's always about the bottom line, about value. How well, whatever you're doing would bring value to the business owner. Does not care what name you call it. So far as he sees, or your boss does not care what name you call it. So far as he sees improvement in his work and is seeing that, okay, per what you've done is making our work easier, we are getting better. Definitely. It's what people are looking out for.
And it's a principle that exists everywhere. I mean, even the laptop that we are using, I don't care about the chip that's inside. As long as it's performing well, I'm happy. But then there are people who care about things that are going on inside. I used to care about the chips that were going inside. But now I just want my laptop to perform. That's the product I'm buying, you know. So think about that as a data professional. You are in the works. At the end of the day, your consumer doesn't care about the R squared of you.
All the things you know, yeah.
You know, all they care about is at a high level. This is what it was before. This is the value I'm getting. I'm done. Yeah. All right.
This is very interesting in the practical sense. I think there's a video I watched on YouTube on how industry is not getting the best out of data science people because of some of these things we are talking about. Because it's not about the technicalities, it's about the end value that you bring.
Exactly.
And you talk about the fact that it's not just about data science, it's the world, how the world operates, all about what value are you adding.
Yeah.
And that is how people would value you and pay you also.
Exactly.
All too soon, we are almost to the end of our interview. The last thing I would want you to share with, like, what are your final words to people who aspire to get into data science, or even for young guys? I'm very passionate about young people because at least you've gone through some stage that you can advise people who want to be like you there. So what are your final words for people who aspire to do with data, and a general advice you would give to young people?
Yeah. So what I would say is that for those who want to get into data, I mean, there's a reason why you want to get into data. Hone that why, because what's going to happen is as with every endeavor in this world, you encounter challenges. I know many people who rushed to go and take an AWS certification because they felt like, oh, AWS is the in thing now. Others, when I was trying to get into, all this data stuff, I was wondering, do I need to do AWS? Do I need to do all these other certifications here and there? But you find out that sometimes that's not what's really needed. And so the advice that I'll have is, start from the basics, start from the fundamentals, and then always have that positive outlook on opportunities, on, on where you are. A lot of times we can be hard on ourselves and think making a lot more progress than I am right now. But always take a step back and be like, you know what? This is where I'm at right now. What else do I need? Maybe you need to have a chat with somebody. Maybe you need, to learn something else. Maybe you just need some rest. No, seriously.
Very true.
I'll be honest with you. There were times that, I started this thing and I took a break for a few weeks and then came back to it with a fresh, mindset. And that helped a lot because now I was able to see things not from a frustrated point of view, but from a well-rested point of view. And so for the young ones who are coming up, I mean, to be honest with you, especially if you're in school and the rest, study those fundamentals well. I mean, a lot of times people will be like, oh, what you learn in school, you may not use in the industry. You may not use specifically what you learned, but there are certain attitudes and there are certain, disciplines you learn, which will serve you well in the future. Because, I mean, I view going to school and going to university and the rest as really learning how to learn, And so for those who are coming up, I mean, one, the opportunities are abounding. There's a lot of opportunity. Two, there's a lot of information out there. Take advantage of it. Is it yesterday? I was watching a movie on Netflix, and it was about some guys in London in the 18 something, and they were doing the Oxford Dictionary, and they were only the number of books that these people had to be combing through for their research. I was like, God, what would we do without Google? We are fortunate to have smartphones that can access information, just like that. And as I was watching that movie, I even remember those times before, computers became a thing, where my dad was working on spreadsheets, and there's actually paper on big tables, spreadsheets that they were using.
Those were real spreadsheets.
So I think about it, I'm like, there's a lot of information out there. If you are focused and disciplined enough, you will find what you need, and be able to make it. And another thing, like what Eben has said, is that look, find people that you can have mentor you, and be humble enough to receive the advice.
Mentorship.
Yeah. And also, don't be, you see, whenever you have someone mentor you, it's an active relationship on your part. It depends more on you than on the mentor. You have to show that initiative. You don't have to wait for somebody to send you stuff or for someone to do something for you. Show that interest, and you'll be amazed at how that mentor is willing to pour more into you. You can't just say, okay, be my mentor, and then just sit down and expect life to go well. You have to be actively involved in that relationship for it to work. And the last thing is just keep an open mind.
Wow.
Study what you need to study, but just keep an open mind to what changes might happen, so you can easily, course correct as you go along. So, and yeah,
I personally learned a lot. So end it with what you were saying something.
No, so I was just saying that, yeah, and if someone has maybe other questions that they want to ask, I know this is going to a broad audience, and sometimes, I mean, people have specific needs. Yeah, just, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out. I mean, whenever I can be available, I will be, to answer, any other questions you may have offline. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, Eugene Foley. Eugene Foley has been my guest. He's a senior data analyst at McKesson Corporation in the US, a Fortune 10 company. And he's had time with us sharing insights and life skills that you can take even outside the data science world. And I personally have been impressed on with a lot of things that I do, even with data. And I'm happy that he's had this time for us. He said he's open. And please, my caution here will be that know that, like he said with the mentorship thing, it is an active role of your part. He has a lot of people that he may be looking at. He has family, he has other things that when you want to get a mentor, it is your seriousness that would determine how the relationship go. Because he has other things. It's not as if he's babysitting you every day. So you could always be asking questions and giving him that opportunity, but even when he does not respond. So as it is you that need it, but he's opened himself up to help. We are so grateful, Eugene, and hopefully we'll have a sequel to this.
Oh yeah.
So
we can have a sequel and talk through some, specifics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So thank you very much.
No, go ahead. No, I'll just say
you were saying something.
Times it would be nice to have like kind of like a technical demonstration.
Very good. That's what I seek to do. Maybe in February.
A lot of really cool dashboards with the elections, so it might be nice for all of us through, and then also for some of us to take you through like some of the other things that we do on a day-to-day.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe in February I'll do that, especially guest tutoring on my channel, so as people may be able to teach others.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
I'll take you on that.
Yeah. Please do. I'll definitely love to do that.
All right. So thank you very much, viewers. We'll close the curtain here. Subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
Wow.